Hey, what's going on, everybody? And welcome to another episode of Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. On this episode, I want to talk about a principle that if we incorporate it into our life, that it'll make it easier for us to attain the success that we want. This principle is critical thinking. Critical thinking is very important to each and every one of us. This is what we need to be able to make better decisions and understand where we're going in life. Now, before we talk about critical thinking, what I would like to talk about is what our current situation and what type of thinking do we have right now. What has happened in our school systems, in our educational system, is that teachers are given a certain amount of curriculum or material that they have to relay to the children in a specific amount of time. Now, what happens is the students have to memorize as much information as possible in order to take a test. So essentially, what the students are being taught is how to take a test. Now, critical thinking, on the other hand, is when you take information and you run it through the filters of critical thinking. The first filter of critical thinking is analysis. You analyze the information and you try to find out, assess the credibility of the information. You want to assess the credibility of the information. The second filter is inference, the inferences. You want to identify and secure elements of the information that will allow you to draw a reasonable conclusion. So inferences is when you're drawing a logical conclusion based on the evidence. The third filter is interpretation. Now, interpretation is weighing that information. Weighing the information, clarifying it, because looking at every sentence and making sure that it's clear. And then from that, looking at the conclusions and generalizations that come from the information and seeing, are they warranted? Are they reasonable? And then the fourth filter is deduction. And deduction is just taking a look at the entire process from the premise to the conclusion and making sure that it's logical and that the conclusion is organically arrived at. Now, what critical thinking does for the individual that applies it to their life is it separates them from the herd mentality. They don't just, they think on their own, apart from the ethos, the societal way of thinking. They think on their own. If a piece of information arrives to them from the news, the newspaper, or an individual, they'll examine and look at that information and send it through the filters of critical thinking. So in the end, these people are not so easily duped into believing things that, aren't necessarily true. So we have to understand that critical thinking is also it's a core part of our learning, of how we learn. Because when you critically think and you send the information that you're reading or you're investigating or you're researching, you send it through these filters of critical thinking, the information grabs hold of you. It has a place to hold on to because you're actively thinking and reflecting on this information. So it tends to stay with you, it tends to stay there longer, and it becomes a part of you. You understand the concept of the information. So the thing that we have to understand is that we have to incorporate critical thinking into our life, because it will help us to be able to see things down the road. And as always, the greatest gift that the Creator has given us is our mind. So let's use it and create the circumstances that we want. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. If there's any questions, comments, or suggestions, please leave them in the box below. And until the next episode of Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, this is T. Bennett saying peace.